Hey guys, it's Jenny at JC Cards, and today I have got a bit of a different video for you. I'm featuring my top 3 favourite embossing powders from WOW to use on Christmas cards. We are having a Christmas themed month over at WOW to build up that stash of Christmas cards, and so I thought it would be a fun video to show you guys the 3 powders that I love the most for Christmas cards. And my first one is this one. This is Rockin Red, inspired by Catherine Pooler, and you can see I've done a circle on the top there just to show you what it looks like heat embossed. It's a fab mix of red but also little bits of holographic green glitter. This is an embossing glitter, and you can see a couple of the shots here. You can see that green sparkle showing through in the light. So I'm going to show you how I created this card. I'm using this background stamp from Hero Arts. This is the NORDIC Holiday Bold Background Print, or Bold Print Background Stamp. And I like this because it's got lots of solid images on it, which are great for heat embossing. And I'm going to be using my MISTI. I've removed the mouse pad, the foam part of it, and I've added it onto my MISTI. To find the centre, I like to add a little black mark and then hold my finger over that little black mark and then line it up against the measurements around the edge of my MISTI and then just add another mark. And this helps me to line up my cardstock perfectly for background stamps, because for this pattern particularly it's important that I get those elements down the middle right in the centre of my panel. The other way you could do this is by doing a 6x6 square of cardstock and then trimming it down. I'm using Nina Desert Storm cardstock. It's a craft cardstock and I love the rustic feel on Christmas cards, especially with this sort of pattern. And I've treated it with a powder tool just to make sure I don't get embossing powder sticking where I don't want it. I'm then inking up my background stamp all over with the WOW embossing ink, and I actually off camera stamped it down 3 times. So I inked it up 3 separate times and stamped it down because my ink pad was not quite juicy enough. I do highly recommend you re-ink your ink pads regularly if you like to do a lot of heat embossing, especially when you're using embossing glitter. It's really important that you have enough ink on your cardstock for it to adhere to. Now I'm just going to use a coffee filter to catch my embossing glitter and tip that Rockin Red embossing powder all over my background. And then I'm going to heat it up. I'm actually heating from the front. My typical recommendation is to heat from behind with embossing glitter, but I found with this one it didn't blow off at all, and I only needed to do 1 stamping. If you find sometimes you get a little bit of glitter flaking off, you can leave your background stamp in the MISTI and then re-stamp over the top and then emboss again. And look at the gorgeous shimmer and shine that you get, that kind of green and red. It's gorgeous. Now I've got a really long strip of black cardstock here, which I've treated with my powder tool, and I'm going to be stamping 3 different sentiments. These are all from the Hero Arts Offbeat Holiday Messages stamp set, and I'm going to be heat embossing them in Opaque bright white embossing powder. This is the superfine grade for small fine sentiments, and I had this scrap kicking about on my desk, so I just grabbed it. I don't normally do them all in a big strip like this. Having said that, this was actually really quick and easy to do 3 different sentiments, so I might do it going forward. So after I've stamped my 3rd sentiment, I did have a couple of little bits of embossing powder sticking where I didn't want it, so I just used a tiny paintbrush that I just used just for that purpose to brush it off. And then I'm going to run each of those sentiments separately through my die cutting machine using this tiny nested banner die. This is from a set from Simon Says Stamp. And then I'm going to pop them up on strips of foam tape at a sort of a jaunty angle down the centre. And as a finishing touch, I'll round the corners of my panel once I've popped it up onto my white card base, and I'm using a half round corner chomper from We Are Memory Keepers. And that finishes my first card. I just absolutely love that. See that sparkle as it catches the light there? It's such a kind of unexpected flash of colour, and the green and red colours just perfect for Christmas. And here's a close-up. Now my second one is Sparkling Snow, because of course it is. How could I not pick this one? That circle on the top, half of that is actually coloured with a black Sharpie. So you can see that this is a very opaque embossing glitter. It's chunky white, opaque white embossing powder with holographic and silver bits of glitter mixed in, and it's gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm going to be using this Christmas trees, or NORDIC trees layering set from Hero Arts again, and I'm going to be using dark navy cardstock because I wanted to show you exactly how opaque this embossing glitter is. It's perfect for creating snow, but I wanted to use it a little bit differently, just, you know, not the obvious from the name of it. So I've lined up this solid stamp from the set. This is the base tree, directly into the center, maybe slightly up towards the upper portion of this A2 panel of navy cardstock. And I've applied a powder tool all over it and then stamped it down. I've left the stamp in my MISTI and then I've heated it up. And look, you could just about leave it at that. However, I wanted to get an extra crisp white coverage, so I'm stamping it down again. I'm just going to add another layer of embossing ink over the top. I did, by the way, for each of these stamp a couple of times with the embossing ink before I then added my sparkling snow, and then heating it up again just to get that extra solid image. And look at that, it's so cool and so pretty in real life. I just love the shimmer and the sparkle, but the fact that it's opaque over dark navy cardstock, black cardstock, is the added bonus for me. And I'm going to choose one of these second layers from the stamp set. I'm going with the one with the deer again, just to match my first card, which had deer on it. I'm laying that over the top. I've popped my cardstock back into my MISTI, and this time I'm going to add another layer of embossing powder, but a different colour, just as an accent. So I'm going to add my embossing ink. I'll do a couple of stampings again, purely because my ink pad needs inking up again. And then I'm going to add some metallic silver. This is super fine because it's quite an intricate detailed stamp. This is not one of my top 3 for Christmas cards, although I think you can use metallic silver on pretty much any card going, so I'm not counting this in my top 3, just as an FYI. And I did go back in and ink up that layer again and just add another layer over the top, just to get that silver layer standing out against that white background. You could do any colour over the top of the sparkling snow. It would look great. You know, you could use the red Rockin Red glitter, you could use gold, you know, the sky's the limit. And then if you just heat out that little bit extra, the 2 layers will melt in together seamlessly. Now I'm going back to my Offbeat Holiday Messages by Hero Arts. I just love this sentiment set, it's really funny. And I really wanted to go for a funny one on this one because it's such a classy looking card, and I thought sort of a snarky or a funny sentiment would just be a little bit kind of out of place, isn't necessarily the right word, but unexpected. Especially one in a classy font like this, you might do a double take for the recipient when they see what the sentiment actually says. As a finishing touch, I heated up that sentiment in metallic silver to match the tree. And as a finishing touch, I just wanted to show you, I'm adding this star on the top. I want to show you the Rockin Red on the black cardstock, or this is navy cardstock. Because this is translucent, it doesn't show up as red, but you do see that green sparkle. It's kind of quite a nice little subtle touch, just to give you an idea of what translucent embossing powders look like, embossing glitters look like on the dark cardstock. So I've trimmed down and die cut, I should say, my panel with a Simon Says stamp stitched rectangle die, and then I've popped it up on white Fun Foam by Derice, added some strong double-sided tape, and then popped it onto a white note card. And that finishes my second card. Bit of layering, embossing there. I love that sparkling snow, it's so pretty in real life. Now my third one is Peppermint Scrub. This is from a new Wow Embossing Trio set. It's currently exclusive at the time of making this video to the Catherine Pooler Designs store, although I'm sure Wow will be carrying it at some point in the future. And it's got huge chunks of holographic glitter, big chunky bits of gold and white, and as part of the trio they're all similar in that respect, and then they all have a different sort of finer grade powder of different colours in the trio. This one, Peppermint Scrub, is kind of like an off pink, like a dusky pink red colour, and it's really kind of different, I think is the word. With the sparkle and the prettiness, it's great for Christmas, but it's got that slightly different colour to it that is just a little bit different for Christmas, and I just really like it. Also, the name reminds me of Christmas as well. So make sure you give it a shake before you use it for embossing, so you can get that kind of Peppermint Scrub coloured embossing powder mixing in with all the holographic pieces. I'm using this delicate Snowflake die by Catherine Pooler, which I've die cut from white cardstock, and then dunked embossing ink all over it, and then added my embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat it up. I'm going to repeat that process 2 more times because I want to get quite a thick layer of the embossing powder on my die cut. This embossing powder is thick, it's chunky, so it's good for using in a technique like this. It definitely wouldn't be so good for embossing fine sentiments, as an example. But when you see this held up, once I've melted it for the 3rd time, I'll hold it up to the camera, and you can see it looks almost like it's been bejeweled. Those big chunky pieces of holographic material embedded into the Peppermint Scrub, gold and white. It's just gorgeous. Encrusted, I think, is the word that comes to mind. I love it. Now I am going to create a simple stamped base on a white note card to adhere my snowflake. So I'm using these Peaceful Flakes stamps from Catherine Pooler Designs. They actually all came out at the same time along with the die, so they coordinate. I think they're similar patterns. And I've stamped the sentiment directly onto the card base in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then I'm using Rose Petals ink, which is one of the Spar inks, to stamp these snowflakes all around that sentiment, just going from the large snowflake to the medium snowflake to the small snowflake to the tiny snowflake. And I thought that colour coordinated really well with the Peppermint Scrub. It's kind of a lighter, kind of pinker version of that base colour. And then I'm just going to use some of my art glitter glue, which dries clear, just to add that snowflake overhanging the sentiment, and lots of acrylic blocks just to leave it flat until it's dried. And there's the look at the finished card. I will snip off those edges, and here's a close-up. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and it gave you some ideas for what embossing powders work well for Christmas cards. I'm sure there's tons of others out there. I'd love to hear what your favourites are. That's it from me for today. Don't forget all the supplies I used are listed in the description box below, and if you want to be reminded when I've got a new video, just click that bell and hit the subscribe button. I love getting new subscribers and it's always appreciated. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and thanks for watching. Bye!